Hello and welcome to Business with Smith Co. Hello and welcome back to Business with Smith Co. Today we're going to be talking about all the advantages and disadvantages and all the other things associated with a private company limited by shares. So let's kick in with the advantages. So one of the main advantages of the private limited company structure is that you have the ability to raise capital by actually selling shares. However, that's only to a maximum of 149 shareholders, so do be aware of that. You're not a public limited company if you're If you are a private limited company, you're not a public limited company. So you're not allowed to just sell shares to all the people. Only 149 people. So, startup costs such as research and development, technology, marketing, staffing requirements are all, very high. So, obviously, access to this kind of money, we're able to just sell shares to 149 shareholders. That can be very useful because, technically you can sell that, pretty much before you even make your main stake in the market. So there's also limited liability. The shareholders of a private limited company, they all have limited liability. This means that they are not personally liable and they cannot lose any of they can only lose their original investment. They cannot lose any personal money unless they've actually invested it themselves. That's if the business fails. So, if the business fails and the bank say, "Oh, we want our money back," they can't come after any of the shareholders because they've got limited liability. One might argue, is that right? Is that wrong? Well, that's the law. So, then you also have the thing of one share, one vote. A private limited company is controlled by shareholders based on the rule one share, one vote. The original shareholders can maintain control of the company. However, while this one share, one vote means that you can have 149 shareholders and still keep hold of your company, it does mean one problem. It means that you can't actually sell more than 51% of the original share capital, because if you do, that power you had or control where you had 149 shareholders but you still held 51%, if you go below 51%, those other shareholders, those ones that came afterwards, or anyone else basically that has that thing, if they band together, they can overrule the original shareholders. Now, obviously, one benefit of this form of shareholding is that the members actually control the shares. This is one benefit though, because unfortunately in a private limited company, if I had a couple of billion quid, I could go out to a major company and I could buy a bunch of their shares and become basically the main person who has control in their company, in public limited company. But if it's a private limited company, I have to go to that company and I have to say, "Here is my money, please give me shares." And they can still say though, no. And that's one of the benefits. Because if you're a private limited company, you're able to say, "No, we don't want to give you these shares. We don't care you have the money. We don't like you, or we don't want to give you the power. You can have 49%, but you ain't having more than that control, because we're not going to let you have control," or anything like that. Any reason they want to, they can say, "No, we're fine actually." Then you have the separate legal entity. The startup business is incorporated and it is a separate legal entity from the owners of the business in the eyes of the law. This means that it can be sued or be sued. It can sue or be sued in its own name and enter into business contracts. So it can go to another business and it can say, "Let's make this product together," or "Let's, share our resources. So I have a resource, you have a resource, let's share them, and that way we're both able to kind of work as two and work together to basically build both our businesses up. I share some of my customers, you share some of mine. That way it works. That will be a business contract. Obviously, you have to have a lot more legal documentation. But the point is that wouldn't be an agreement. That wouldn't be an agreement between the business owners. That would be an agreement between the two businesses. Now, obviously, the business owners would have to, agree on behalf of the business. The business itself can't make it. You know what I mean? The company is legally independent of its owners, and therefore it can actually stay in existence even if its owners die. So let's say I set up a company and it becomes very successful. Even if I die, that company does not get liquidated. That company stays as it is. Unless it's a partnership, in which case there's a little bit more complicated there. But it's because it's a private limited company. Because it's a private limited company, it is able to stay independent from its owners. If it's a partnership, that is different. Because they're more complicated, or you have to replace the shareholder, or, there are all these things. I have to redraw all these things, and it becomes very complicated there. But because it's a private limited company, they don't have that. However, private limited companies also have massive disadvantages. The main one being more expense, far more expensive than other methods. Obviously not as expensive as public limited companies, but still very expensive in comparison with a sole trader or partnership. There are more costs involved. There's also establishing costs, but then there's also closing down. Like, if you want to close down a limited company, there's also costs there, which is a problem. And it's actually a similar problem to how bankruptcy law works in America, where it's like, well, you have to pay to be considered bankrupt. But you don't have the money, then it becomes a problem. Because if a business wants to close down, a business wants to declare bankruptcy, that means that technically the bank isn't able to do anything. That debt, as long as it's a public limited, as long as it's a private limited company or public limited company or anything like that, the bank it can seize business assets. So if the business has a building it owns or machinery it owns or anything like that, then it can seize that. But it can't seize personal assets. So obviously, if a business goes bankrupt, then that's gone. But if it is not able to close down, well, then it becomes a problem. Because then the bank is able to go, well, business pay me now. You know that building you own? That's not in your name, the owner. You owner of this, that's not in your name. That's in the business's name. That belongs to us now. And that is one of the things. If the business is not closed down, then, well, it has a problem there. Now, there also needs to be people who have professional areas when it comes to private limited companies. For example, if you want to set up a company and help prepare annual accounts and tax returns and all these sort of things, you may have to hire an accountant, a solicitor, and all these sort of things. And these people will not do that for free. And they will not do that for later down payments. These payments will most likely be required to be either upfront or pretty soon afterwards or during. And that means that, well, if you don't have that money, if it's like, okay, you make 50,000 in your first year and you can pay your accountant, you can pay all this, but what if you can't beforehand? If you can't beforehand, then that becomes a problem because you can't pay for that. You also have filing accounts. There are there are laws in place, and there are more compliance procedures that a limited company is required to deal with than a sole trader or partnership or anything like that. For example, annual returns, the sensitive costs, as auditors, along with accountants, will need to be, there to complete these things. Then you have the benefits of changing from a sole trader to a private limited company. So these are the previous two were the advantages and disadvantages of just setting up as a private limited company. But what about when you're changing from? You already exist. You've already created your business, you've already created all this sort of stuff. Now, what are the benefits there if you're actually moving? See, sole trader has unlimited liability, so it faces all these personal losses if assets, of assets, if the business decides to go bankrupt. Now, if they become a limited company, they will have limited liability, and they will no longer face losing these personal assets should their business go bankrupt. A sole trader might be limited in how much capital they invest. If they become a limited company, they suddenly have 149 shareholders. Well, technically, if they're a shareholder themselves, it's 148 more people to invest in their business. And if you get pretty big investors, that can be quite a lot of money. Well, for the business. If they make this switch, the workload, decision making, and the stress of running a business can be shared amongst all of these new owners. There are 149 people there, except for just one, which most sole traders are only one, but sometimes more. A sole trader will also cease to be, business if it dies, if the business owner dies. So if I set up a business, it's a sole trader business, and then I pass away, that business is done. However, once again, if it becomes a limited company, it will continue to exist. This might be very important if a sole trader wants it to be a family business and they want that business to pass on. Obviously, you could argue that's a bit of nepotism there, but still, I guess it's easier because even just having that where they can just go, well, I had experience in business. Oh, what experience do you have? Well, my grandfather set up a business, and I worked for my father, who ran the business for 3 months when he was getting experience after he was, it's sort of thing we have like a family business you can run there, and that, that helps to sort of more kind of secure your family's future, because obviously, it's all well and good if you're like, oh yeah, but if you're not a millionaire, if you're not making loads of money, you can't necessarily secure a family's future like that. You can't just go, oh yeah, 3 million. They're in the bank, like you can have that. You can access that any time, in medical bills, anything like that. Dip in there and boom, you have the money. If you don't have that kind of thing, but you have a business, that business may not have loads of money being made day by day. But what if you just work at it? If you have that business there, that means it's a business that you own, and if you die, you can pass on to your relatives. That makes money. It may not make a fortune, but it still makes enough money that you can live. And it means that if you have that, well, if you land up unemployed or anything, you just have that little bit of job security there. Anyway, thank you for watching the video or listening to this thing. It's more likely listening. If you would like to view other videos, that'd be good. Yeah, that'd be good. It helps out, as does subscribing, by the way. So you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps. And hopefully we'll see you next time. See you then, I guess. If not, then I guess goodbye forever. Unless you view other videos, I guess. Well, if you don't do them, then bye then forever, I guess. Yeah.